Nation Sports Talk kicking off a brand new week as we roll into it on a Monday, along with Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers. Did you have a uneventful Mother's Day yesterday?
Well, I mean, uneventful as in nothing bad happened, so that was good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a big deal in our house having 5 kids, but again, it's not my mom, so but I definitely facilitated the children to take care of their mother yesterday. So
right,
may as well be the way it all goes down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast last week, and one of the guys, I think his mom wanted to go to a New York Mets game. They live in New York. Mom wanted to go to a Mets game. Wife didn't want to go. So the dilemma was, is Mother's Day for your actual mother or the mother of your kids?
See, it's tough though too, because I would say it's for your mother, but are you leaving your wife home with the kids solo?
And that was the whole dilemma, because they obviously would have had to be gone for 5 hours.
Yeah,
to go to a game, and
that's a tough pill to swallow on that one. If I would have left my wife home alone with the children on Mother's Day, I don't think that would have flown out very well for me.
But what he didn't mention was, like, I don't know if the mother, like if his wife's mother was still in the pic, what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that, like, because that's something else altogether. So, but anyway,
it is very tough being in this situation. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the wife, and I got the mother-in-law, and like, whatever. And yeah, it's just wild. I don't know.
It's a dilemma. I'm not trying to bring the party down, but it's a dilemma that, as you know, I haven't had to. It's never like entered my world because my mom has been gone for a long time. But
right.
I did have my mother-in-law in town this weekend, so that was different. Like, that was like the first time for at least half the weekend anyway, because they drove over to Columbus for Jesse's fiance's bridal shower on Saturday. So that's why she came through. They did that, and then she was here yesterday.
Nice.
I threw some steaks on the grill. Everyone was happy.
Sounds pretty solid to me.
Yeah.
We did the old go out to dinner, big check type style, and it was fun. It was good food, great food, good family time. So it was good stuff. Good stuff. And then went and looked at tulips. Yep, up in Michigan.
Oh, like driving around looking at the tulips.
Oh, we went all the way to the tulip capital of the world, Holland, Michigan.
Wow. You did that yesterday?
Yesterday.
That's a haul, man.
Yeah, it's like an hour and a half.
Is that all it is? I thought it was farther than that for some reason.
No, it's not too bad.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was there.
Hung out for a while. That was with all 5 kids? Were all 5 kids in tow?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
What kind of vehicle do you have? Do you have like an SUV kind of thing?
We do. We have a Traverse, which has
I've never seen you drive that, so
I don't drive it. So
I know.
I am not allowed to drive it, actually. That is my wife's vehicle. So I am
So did you even drive it on the road trip to Holland, or
no? I'm in the passenger seat.
You're just like over there hanging out. All right.
I had the headphones in. I was watching Notre Dame Lacrosse.
Okay.
Actually, is what I was watching, and it was. I mean, I would much rather be in control driving, but I can zone out and watch my phone too, without much of a problem. So,
oh yeah, I've seen Vince's ADD kick in on that road trip that we made to Atlanta and back. So
you're not wrong. Not wrong.
All right. Well, I'm sure you've seen the Big Ten and the SEC are at it again. They're already pushing for this another expanded college football playoff format, and they're going right past. Like, 14 seemed like it was the popular thing for a while.
I thought it was almost like a done deal.
Yeah,
more or less.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden they're talking about this 16-team playoff, and it would be for the 2026 season. The 12-team format will stay in effect for this year because it's the last year of the current college football playoff contract, and then 2026 is when the new format will begin. Now, it's not final that it's going to be 16, but the SEC and the Big Ten are pushing for it, so it sure seems like it's probably going to happen at this point, based on everything, all the reporting that's coming out. The SEC and the Big Ten would each get 4 auto bids in this 16-team field. The ACC and the Big 12 would each get 2. group of 6 would get 1 guaranteed bid, and there would be 3 at-large bids. And as for Notre Dame, they would reportedly just need to be ranked in the top 14 to be guaranteed an at-large spot. And also, unlike the 12-team format, there would be no first-round buys in a 16-team field. It would be just straight up seeded 1 through 16, and everybody plays all the way through. So we'll talk more about the bracket in a minute. I've actually got one, like what it would have looked like this past. I'll throw up here on the screen here in a minute. But I don't know. Do you like the idea of 16 teams? What do you think about this?
I mean, I am more of a proponent of it after I've seen how the 12-team playoff went. Okay. 16 has got to be the absolute max, though, because you're talking.
You just can't keep going beyond
right.
that.
So, like, I'm actually okay going straight from 12 to 16 because, like, meeting in the middle and going 14 for a couple of years and then, but knowing you're going to get to 16, just go right to 16. That's fine. But that's where you have to cap it because in football, you're talking about the top 16 teams in the country. Like,
right.
Half those teams probably don't even belong in it in the first place.
Well, I mean, we found that out. We
like,
found, and again, just because you had some lopsided games in the first round this year doesn't mean you're always going to have it. But
correct.
Still, like they were, I think some of those games were more theoretically evenly matched than what you're going to have if it's 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're like 16 is I completely agree with that. That has got to be the absolute limit. I don't want to see them go beyond that. I mean, and again, I think it'll be good TV and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that's obviously what the SEC and the Big Ten are banking on. But that's a good point too about like seeing what a 12-team bracket looked like this year. I think that like I think everyone's appetite like is in on. I don't know if I won't say everyone wants to go to 16 or even 14, but at the same time, after seeing that, getting all these new teams in, fresh faces, all these, like especially from a Notre Dame perspective, I mean, you played a first round game on your campus site, you ended up, and so did Ohio State for that matter, you ended up playing for a national championship game. And again, like I think that's part of what I wonder how much, like from the Big Ten and SEC's perspective, because they're the ones who are, good or bad, driving the bus on this, and they're pushing, this whole thing. Like from their perspective, seeing the fact that all 4 teams that had the first round buys got beaten this year, like did that play into, well, let's just forget about the buys. Let's just everybody play in the first round. Everyone goes on equal footing all the way through. There's no advantage or disadvantage either way. I mean,
yeah, I guess my biggest thing about the whole 16 team projection and what they're saying. So like, I don't dig the automatic bids. Like if you can't organically get yourself into the top 16, then you don't belong in the playoff to begin with because you don't have a shot at winning it.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at. And that maybe someday, maybe there would be an outlier somewhere where, like, let's say, the starting quarterback goes down in week 10, but then is back for the playoff, and maybe they dropped their last couple of games, and so maybe they fell out of the top 16, and now they're back. But that is like an anomaly. You know what I mean? Like that's an absolute anomaly. So like the top 4 SEC teams, top 4 Big Ten teams, like if you're not in the top 16 to begin with, you don't belong in there. So why do you need to have automatic bids?
Well, see, and I think it's ludicrous, and it's like especially with the the 4 apiece, because if you go back and look at the last 11 years, and someone put up some good information on all this stuff, the Big Ten would average 5.3 teams a year over the last 11 years.
There you go.
The SEC would be averaging 5. So why do you need the 4-team guarantee? Why can't you just, I don't understand why they have to have the guarantees like that when their teams are the ones, that are big. Because when you're in one of those conferences, you're already given the better,
correct,
the benefit of the doubt.
Correct.
So
I mean, and I almost feel like the automatic bids need to be for the Big 12 and the ACC to guarantee
Right.
that they get 2 teams in, because
Right.
they're always kind of overlooked with the Big 10 and the SEC, and they may be artificially moved down. You know what I
and
mean?
their Big 12 is their average was 2.4 over the last 2.4 teams, ACC 2.1.
So they're going to get theirs in
again,
anyway.
they're going to get in.
And I realize it's an average, and there might be a year where they only get one in, or they, or whatever. But you don't need the automatic bids. I think that's ridiculous. The only automatic bid that I would be in favor of is the group of 6. Like, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. Hey, you're giving them a seat at the table. It still allows them to play for something. Like, I'm actually okay with that, because you're still getting the 15 best teams.
Right. Like Craig is saying money, but again, based on the averages, they're already getting more than what they even want. So if you're going to expand, it's one thing if it was going to stay at 12 and you wanted 4 guaranteed teams in, but now you're expanding it to 16 and you still want the guarantees, when the odds are, like, worst case scenario, you're probably going to end up with 4 no matter what.
Correct.
And like, I'll just go ahead and put what would have been this year's bracket with 16 teams up here. Nice. On the field. Let me see if I can expand this a little bit. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
So this is what if it was this year, if there would have been a 16-team field, here's what it would have looked like. Oregon would have been the number 1 seed playing number 16 Clemson. The 8-9 game would be Boise State and Indiana, which I think would have been a much better matchup than either of the Boise, or Indiana had to play. The 4-13 would be Penn State and Miami. The 5-12 is Notre Dame and Arizona State. So that's all on one side of the bracket. So Notre Dame's potential second round matchup would have been Penn State, assuming they beat Miami. The other side of the bracket is very interesting, because the 2-15, Georgia against South Carolina. So you've got 2 SEC teams over there playing each other in the first round. 7-10, Tennessee against SMU. 3-14, you've got another all-SEC matchup, Texas against Ole Miss. And then the 6-11 game is Ohio State and Alabama.
I'll tell you what, man, Notre Dame is on the great side of the bracket here.
I know. Like, I still like Notre Dame's path to getting to a national championship game. I don't like it quite as much as I like Ohio State's path in this instance.
Man.
Now, if they played the way they ended up playing in the playoff,
it wouldn't have mattered, obviously. But like, having to face off against Alabama, probably Texas, and then Georgia. Yeah, that's a tough road to hoe there for the old Buckeyes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But what did it end up being? The SEC ended up with 6 bids if it would have been 16 this year. The Big 10 would have had 4. ACC would have had 3. The Big 12 would have only had 1. So there's your instance where, like, the guarantee for the Big 12, keeping everybody happy. The group of 6 obviously would have had 1, being Boise State.
So is this seeding that you have here, is this based on what the final rankings were, or is this like the seeding? Because
yeah, this is straight up final
rankings.
rankings would have been going into.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
And based on guarantees and all that kind of stuff.
Perfect.
I'm not exactly sure what Clemson. Let me see. I think I can probably find this here real quick.
Does that make sense then? Because
Clemson was 16.
Okay,
actually.
So there you go. Yep. So they were the last team in, basically.
Yep.
Because Boise State was good enough that they were ranked in the top 16, so they didn't even need the auto bid to be bumped up into the bracket.
But it's crazy. You've got 8 teams on each side of the bracket because it's a 16-team bracket, and as Andre says, all six SEC teams are clustered among those 8 teams on one side of the bracket based on the seeding.
Yeah.
Like, are they going to flip out if that happens?
100%. Yes, absolutely. They would.
How are they going to gerrymander this thing to make sure that doesn't happen to them?
It's like the Pee Wee hockey lines in Mighty Ducks. Like they're whatever. They're trying to gerrymander things to make it work. But that will absolutely happen. But again, to your point, why do they need the automatic bids? The only conference that would have an issue is the Big 12. And more often than not, they're going to get 2 teams in. I guess you can give them like, okay, we're going to give you the automatic bids, and they would have been in anyway. So it's like, it just seems silly to even have the automatic bids because they're going to get in regardless.
Right.
So I don't know. Waste of time to me.
And that's why I don't understand. I don't understand why they're insisting on having these auto bids when, again, like SEC would be guaranteed 4 slots under this agreement. Well, in this year's bracket, they would have had 6 teams in. So it's completely unnecessary. I mean, I guess you're guarding against, the season, but the season where maybe you don't have, teams that are of that caliber. But again, because you're the SEC and it's 16 teams that you're going to, you're gonna get those in no matter what. There's just no way. I can't see the SEC
not having 4 teams in the top 16.
Ever not having 4 in the top 16.
Come on.
Right.
You will always have at least 4 in the top 16. They don't need the automatic bid. You just don't. It's a waste of our time to even talk about it. It's just an absolute waste of time. And I don't know. They're going to do it. They're going to say that they have automatic bids because it's going to make the conferences happy.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like we'll go through this exercise right next December, and we'll say, okay, here's what not next December, the December after that. We'll go through and be like, okay, here's what the official bracket is. Here's what it would have been without the automatic bids. There might be one team that's off, like there was this year with the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, all of those bids will be in, and nothing would be any different.
Now, I didn't even mention this part of it that Archer's talking about. He says one good thing that can come of it is getting rid of the conference championship weekend and have the play-in games for the Big Ten and the SEC instead. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
They're talking about like these conferences, and let me see if I can find it so I can actually read it to you. These conferences, like those conferences specifically, would
SEC,
have
the Big Ten.
Yeah, like for those final spots, they would. I think it would be like 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5 or something like that, with the winners getting in. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, those would be like, I guess, see, that's like, okay, we're going to send you to Dayton and you're going to have some play-in games, I guess. I guess that would be, people would watch, obviously, probably more so than even the conference championship games.
They'd be meaningful.
They would be meaningful. They would be meaningful. And that would obviously shake up everything as far as those conferences are concerned. So, I mean, but they're playing games, right? Like it's the 60, the 68, 67, 66, and 65th team, they get to go to Dayton a few days early. That's basically what this is. And so if you're going to do that with the Big Ten and the SEC, are you going to have play-in games between 2 and 3 in the ACC and the Big 12 for that final spot? Or is it just those 2?
Good question. They'll all the conferences will have to make their own decisions. I mean, that's, that'll all be left to the conferences.
I think the conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC will love it because instead of having one conference championship game, now you've got 2 play-in games.
More TV content.
Double the profit. Let's go. They're going to love that. Now, is it going to, I'm obviously just spitballing, but is that going to be like at an NFL stadium? They're going to have like a double header? Is it going to be, at home? The higher seeded team gets to host that game. Like, what is that going to look like? You know what I mean? But it will be must-see TV. People are going to tune in and watch, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And that could affect seeding as well. And potentially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, if it's 3 versus 6, like in this season, just this past season, 6 would have already been in anyway. So like you're really kind of playing that for no reason. 4 versus 5, both of those teams would have been in, and obviously 3 would have been in. So like you're, to an extent, you would still kind of be playing a somewhat meaningless game. The only thing that would be impacted would be what you just said, the seeding aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah. So let's kind of look at this from a Notre Dame perspective now. Andre's asking, does it mean that Notre Dame could be a number 1 overall seed instead of having to not be a top 4 seed? I believe so. Again, this is all a proposal, and based on what they're talking about, this is just seeded 1 through 16. There are no stipulations, for Notre Dame, because like they were even talking about, they wanted to change that aspect of it just for the 2025 season. Sorry, I keep biting my lip. Just for the 2025 season, but they couldn't get any unanimous support behind that, and it had to be unanimous to change it this year, because shocker, the group of 6 schools didn't want to change that this year because that would have hurt them. But it sounds like if it's a 16-team bracket, it's just going to be seeded 1 through 16. So Notre Dame could be anywhere among those top 4 seeds, unlike this year.
Yeah, so I was trying to think of this from a Notre Dame perspective, and obviously this year they had to play 4 games in order to be in the national championship, to win the national championship. You got to play 4 games. In this new fangled 16-team bracket, you got to play 4 games if you want to be in the national championship. So that doesn't change, right? The first round games are going to be on campus. That doesn't change. And Notre Dame has an opportunity to be a top seed. Now, the top seed doesn't necessarily, it obviously helps you in this regard, right? Because if you're the number 1 team in the country, you get to face off against the number 16 team in the country. Like, that is an obvious advantage, right? Having a bye, I understand why Notre Dame took a back seat to the bye and all of that to make sure that they still had it. But look, there was a stipulation that Notre Dame would make it in if they're in the top 14, right, into this new 16-team bracket. Look, as a Notre Dame fan, as an analyst, if Notre Dame's not in the top 14, I don't want them to be part of the playoff because they're probably going to get embarrassed. Like, why would you want that? Yeah. So this is great for Notre Dame. You're telling me that as long as they're in the top 14 teams in the country, they're automatically in the playoff. They should be in the playoff 4 out of 5 years, Well,
and again, of the 11 years that there's been a college football playoff, Notre Dame would have made it 7 times if the
there you go
requirement was you have to be a top 14 seed.
There you go. So that's fine by me. Like, I don't need Notre Dame artificially inflated either. You know what I mean? To like an automatic independent gets a bid or some baloney like that. I don't need that. So look, I'm all for, if you deserve it, then you belong in. If Notre Dame's in the top, if they're outside the top 14, they don't belong in. I'm fine with that. They should be in almost every single year, being in the top 14 with the way things are going with Freeman and recruiting and everything else. So
I didn't realize Joe is a conspiracy theorist. Everybody's against Notre Dame. Come on. Everybody's against Notre Dame. Joe says that they would rig it so Notre Dame couldn't be the number 1 seed.
If they're undefeated, they will be. Like,
yeah,
don't worry. You're okay. Yeah. You're okay. So, and again,
committees have actually traditionally been very favorable.
Very favorable because they want those ratings. Again, if we're going to say it's all about the money and all about the ratings, then we also have to agree that they want Notre Dame involved. That's why they keep making stipulations for Notre Dame in all of these postseason, prognostications and, Notre Dame automatically gets in if they do this. They automatically get in if they do that. Like, no one else gets that. They want Notre Dame involved. Okay. They absolutely want that.
And the other aspect of this is from Notre Dame's perspective, like they would be in that, probably like 10 to, 16 range, 10 to 14 range, most likely with 2 losses. And we talked about the tougher scheduling that's coming up after adding the Clemson series last week. But with a 16-team field, they're going to be in pretty good shape as long as they're 10-2, basically. So like we were looking at 2028, where you've got Clemson, Texas, and Miami all on the schedule. And then the next year where you've got Alabama, Clemson, and Texas, and a few other years like that where you got Alabama, Florida State, Clemson, and then you've got 2032, and you've got road games at Florida and Miami, and then home games against Clemson and Florida State. Like those kind of years,
sure.
Basically any year, but those are the tougher years theoretically on the schedule, and that's again obviously still not factoring USC in there because we don't know for sure what's going to happen with that. But you can absorb 2 losses and still feel really good about your playoff chances if you're Notre Dame, because if you got 2 losses, you should still be able to fall into that top 14 range someplace.
Right. Can you? I want to bring this up here real quick because this one always gets me. Mad14ND says, "Yeah, but all the sportscasters dislike Notre Dame." I don't care. Like, people get very worked up about if a sportscaster has a negative opinion about Notre. Who cares?
One, it's the Joe Buck effect, because you expect to turn on the TV and you think that everything that everybody says is going to be glowing about your team. And where people really get bent out of shape is, and you do this too. I know you do it too, Vince. So you're not, completely.
What are we talking about?
You can't wash your hands. Like, the first time they say something good about somebody on the other team, oh, they hate Notre Dame because they said something good about the other team.
But I don't like that. They can. I'll talk about it.
But
I don't care.
But here's the point. Guess what? None of that impacts who wins or loses the game.
This is what I'm saying.
So, sportscasters can have all their opinions that you want, and you can perceive their information to be negative all you want, but none of it actually impacts whether the team wins or loses the game. Like, they're just a couple guys at the end of the day talking about the game as the game is going on. They may annoy the hell out of you, but they have no actual impact on who wins or loses. So what difference does it make?
Exactly.
That's what I don't get.
My point exactly. Like, you and I, we can talk about on the show if somebody says something, we don't agree with it or whatever. Like, that's fodder for days. Like, I'm all about that. But at the end of the day, I could give a crap what sportscasters think about Notre Dame. It doesn't matter with me, because the players they don't have the radio in their ear. Like, they can't hear what they're saying while they're playing the game. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just doesn't matter.
Tommy just made my point, actually, because Tommy, Cleveland fan, who, at the time it was the Cleveland Indians who played the Chicago Cubs in the 2016 World Series. And Tommy says, Joe Buck sucks. He was obsessed with the Cubs. Well, guess what? Almost every Cub fan, because we live here, and Vince is a Cub fan. Jesse's a diehard Cubs fan. Guess what? Virtually every Cubs fan said after the World Series, I'm glad we won, but Joe Buck was so biased for the Indians.
Yes.
He loved the Indians.
That's right.
Literally.
Yes.
I don't know how many Cubs fans I heard say that afterwards. Like, both teams.
It's hilarious.
Fans of both teams think the same
You hear what
thing.
you want to hear, man.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
With every sportscaster, you hear what you want to hear. Ideally, you want somebody that's going to be neutral right down the line. You're going to hear what you want to hear, because they're going to be critical of plays and of things that happen. And then all of a sudden it's like, they hate my team. They hate them. I think Joe Buck does a great job, by the way, just FYI.
I do too. Always have. I literally think he's the best play-by-play guy in the business right now. The fact that he's not doing baseball, I think Major League Baseball has really suffered.
Yes.
I think they could use a new color guy, and that could help, a color analyst, and that could help that broadcast as well. Like, I don't need John Smoltz diagnosing every single pitch. Like, give me a little levity, give me a little fun during the broadcast. We got completely sidetracked on that, but at the end of the day, I mean, I understand what Outbound is saying. The annoying part is the problem. I like to enjoy my game, and I think at the end of the day,
fair.
That's really what anyone watching a game asks for, right? Is that the announcer does not annoy them. Like, that can be a problem sometimes, especially when it comes to college and on ESPN, when you've got a big list of play-by-play teams. You're going to get different guys of different experiences,
but it'll be even worse if you got 16 teams, by the way. Just FYI.
Think about that for a minute.
And that actually, somebody mentioned how they're going to have 8 games in one weekend. That actually is going to be tough, because they try to avoid Sundays because of the NFL that time of year.
And Saturdays are even an issue at that time of year, by mid-December, because of the NFL as well. That's why you had so many.
Right.
Notre Dame played on a Friday last year.
You're going to have games that are competing against each other. Like, that's really the only way you're going to be able to do it that first weekend and have 8 games. There's just no other way to do it. So you're going to have 2 games on Friday night, and then you're going to have 6 games probably in the 3 time slots on Saturday. Like, that's the only way I can think of.
And some of it'll also depend on when New Year's falls, when New Year's Eve falls, and those kind of things, and you kind of work back from there. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I think we had some Thursday and Friday games last year. I would say Thursday through even Wednesday, because again, depending on when New Year's is, like all those other days during the week when the NFL's not playing are going to be kind of up for grabs.
Yeah.
I think so. But
scheduling is going to be a problem, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess at the end of the day, are you more excited about this? You know, are you just kind of meh about this?
I'm for it. Like I think it's a good thing, to be honest with you. Overall, I thought the playoff was a good thing this past year. I enjoyed it. I really did. And obviously Notre Dame was in it the whole way, so that was obviously very enjoyable. Okay, and that's not going to happen every single year as much as I want it to. So different years will be differently enjoyable. Okay, so I will say that. But I thought the playoff was a good thing, and as much as I am anti, we'll just add more, make it more of a good thing. Like it's not that simple, but I do think making it an even 16 teams and not having a bye and just rolling through it, I think that's a positive. If they try to make it bigger than 16, I'm putting the big stop sign up.
And that's exactly it. Like Tom is saying, he thought 12 was ideal. I thought 12 worked pretty good, but the big discrepancy that you had, and again, when you've got teams that, that had those first round buys and lost, and obviously, you had teams from different conferences who are part of that. When they lost those games, that automatically kind of impacts how they feel about those games. And they also, because they had buys, didn't get on-campus games. They had to go straight to bowl sites for their first games. And what was the biggest thing I think that most people raved about with the 12-team format was the on-campus atmosphere for all these games. And so now, again, like no one's got any kind of advantage over anybody else. The only advantage is home field advantage. If you go 1 through 16, you're seeding it 1 through 16, and you're not, making
gerrymandering
who won the conference championship and all that different kind of stuff.
That was annoying.
Yeah, you're taking that out of it, so you're giving legitimate seeding 1 through 16, and everyone starts on equal footing. Everyone gets a first round game, and then you play it through 4 games at the most for everybody if you get to the national championship game. So that's what I think about it the most is you're going to have more games, and you're also going to have more on-campus games.
Yep.
And so all these teams 1 through 8 are going to be rewarded for the regular seasons that they had by getting, by being able to host these games. And that's another thing, from Notre Dame's perspective is now you can be, as low as the number 8 seed. It's going to be like that 8-9 is where everyone's, that's obviously the cut line, because the 8 seed is going to get to host, the 9 seed is going to be on the road, but Notre Dame could be seeded as low as 8 and still host a first round playoff game. So that's good for the Irish too.
What I think is going to be very interesting is if they do these play-in games, I would say, more often than not, you're going to have teams that are playing in this playoff game that are comfortably into the playoff, right? And what happens if they lose that game? You know what I mean? It's going to be a similar situation to those conference championships, because there's going to be years where there's 6 SEC teams in the top 16. Well, a bunch of those teams are now playing in a play-in game, and the team that loses that game, they're probably out, and they have to play this extra game. Like, you're going to hear a lot of bitching about that.
That's true.
If you're one of those teams, like, look, I'm in. We're the number 12 team in the country. We're in. And we got to go play another game? Like, yeah, oof. You're going to hear a lot of piss and vinegar about that one.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about that.
Exactly. Back to the radio and the announcers and all that kind of stuff. Outbound was saying he wished that the radio broadcast synced up with the live broadcast. I would just listen to the radio and watch on TV. This is something I've been talking about for over a year now, because I don't watch a lot of the Major League Baseball broadcasts on Apple TV, but they do like those Friday night broadcasts. And if you've ever watched on your remote control, there's an option where you can either listen to the TV announcers that they have, or you press the button on your remote control and you can pick the home radio broadcast for either of the teams playing and listen to that while you're watching the game, and they completely sync it up for you. And with all these different like ESPN and the other thing is they still like they cut the audio at the commercial breaks. So like you're still going to have to watch the network TV commercials and hear the network TV commercials. It's just while the game is going on, you're going to listen to whichever broadcast you want. There's no reason, it seems like, in the world that we live in,
right,
that ESPN and Fox and CBS and, you know, all the streamers, NBC, Peacock, it just seems to me that there's no reason that everybody couldn't be doing this right now.
That makes too much sense from a Notre Dame perspective. That makes just too much sense to have the Peacock broadcast, right? And just make that the radio broadcast with the visuals.
Make that, like I've said that before, because there's only one game. There's only one game a year that is exclusive to Peacock. So I understand you're going to want to maybe keep that, unless again, like
make it an option. Make it an option then.
Yeah, but like at the very least, if you've got the game on NBC broadcast TV and the Peacock streamer, why wouldn't the Peacock streamer just be the Notre Dame radio network audio?
Yeah, like you don't get the option. Like that's what you
the
get.
Notre Dame. You know, that's like the Notre Dame. You know, Homer, like the alt broadcast. Why wouldn't you just do it that way?
It makes too much because it makes too much sense, Sean. That's why they'll never do it, because it makes too much sense.
Yep.
But you also can, you know, if you're talking Notre Dame games are on the Odyssey app, so you can very easily, to be honest with you, sync up the Odyssey app and the video feed that you're watching on TV. It's pretty easy to do, to be honest. I used to do it all the time with women's basketball. Sync up the Odyssey app with Sean Stiers, turn down the volume on the TV, and watch the game. Like
you can do it with football as well.
Yes, because you absolutely can.
All the games, all the Notre Dame broadcasts, all streamed through the Odyssey app.
Right. And the Odyssey app, the nice thing about the Odyssey app, I say it's nice in this regard, is that if you're listening live on radio, obviously it's going to be earlier than TV, and you can't speed up the TV. Mm-hmm. Odyssey app is actually slower than the TV, so you can then sync it up that way. So that's the way you want to do it.
Outben says too many people would say it's biased.
It's Notre Dame's home network.
Right. And if you promote it as like the broadcast specifically for Notre Dame fans, like if you promote the Peacock stream that way, because I mean, the last I heard, you know, look, we don't get streaming numbers, right?
Correct.
And the reason you don't hear streaming numbers, if they were good, you'd hear them. They'd be bragging about them all over the place. Exactly right. Like Amazon is always pumping out the NFL Thursday night, you know, streaming numbers. That's virtually the only live sports like ratings numbers that we hear about is the Thursday night Amazon football.
Right.
If everybody else's were doing well, you would the PR machines would be cranking out those ratings numbers as well. You know, so like, why not cater to the Notre Dame fan base a little bit more? Because that's what's the biggest complaint most Notre Dame fans have with the NBC broadcast is they want someone who is more, you know,
they want homers,
not trying to play it down the middle. Yeah, they want the homer. They want the homer.
You'll get that with the radio call. Let me tell you, right? Ryan Harris does a really good job, but he is 1,000% a homer.
There will be no doubt. There will be no doubt when you listen to that broadcast.
No.
Who they're for.
And look, that's what they're supposed to be.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
They're the home radio announcers. You're supposed to be homers. Like that. That's what you're supposed to do. When Sean and I called high school football games for a specific high school, we had to be homers. Like that's how that you have to do that, you know? So yeah, I go radio broadcast, man. Nothing wrong with that at all.
There you go. There you go. Like I said, I think it'd just be cool, like in 2025, if more of these networks, more of these streamers didn't just, you know, like give somebody something different. You know, that's what it comes down to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, overall, like I think the only thing I really don't like about the 16-team field is just these auto bids. Everything else, after seeing the 12-team format this year. Everything else, I like it. And like from Notre Dame's perspective, again, it works out well because now you can still be the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed or, you know, whatever, because it's going to go straight seeding, you know, as long as they don't make any tweaks to that part of it and, you know, and try to go, you know, like they did this year with, well, you've got to be a conference champion to get one of the top 4 seeds or something like that. They feel like they're going to do it more true to form. So Notre Dame could be, seated up there at the top if they deserve it. They could be seated as low as 8 and still get a home playoff game. And again, like everybody would be playing home playoff games in the first round. So
be awesome.
Yeah.
Be awesome. I mean, if any of those home playoff atmospheres is anything like what Notre Dame IU was, like I welcome that to any college football fan at their home park. You know what I mean? Like that. It was just an electric atmosphere. You know, it was awesome.
I concur. All right. Well, I think that's it for that.
Okay.
So that said, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go, baby. Rapid fire. Hit it. Hit it.
Got in here a little bit earlier than I thought we would tonight.
It's true.
Fill in the blank. Some other big news today. Notre Dame announced game times for their 7 home football games this season, and it's blank that the Fighting Irish will have 3 primetime home games.
Unexpected will be the word that I would use. It's unexpected. Look, I assumed A&M and USC were going to be night games. It just makes sense, right? They usually have 2. Those 2 games make perfect sense. The odd one is the Navy game. Like, why are we putting Navy at night? Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Navy at night. It's got a little ring to it.
Yeah, Navy at night. I don't know. And it's in November, too, I believe, right?
Yep.
Off the top of my head. So
just like last year, November game.
Cold, baby. Like,
it will.
Potentially cold. Once that sun goes down in November, man, like, it's cold. So I'm curious as to I would love to know the reasoning behind Navy at night. Now, I have never made it unknown to people that I hate night games because it just makes for such a long night with the post-game show. But I am in a season of my life where night games actually work out better. So I guess here we go. Night games, 3 of them. Bring it on. And that obviously doesn't include what they're going to be doing on the road because we know Miami's going to be at night. And guaranteed there's going to be other night games as well moving forward. Could be Arkansas, could be at night. You know, there's all kinds of options for the away games to be at night. But here we are.
I think this opens up, like going forward, we could pretty much see 3 night games a year if it works out. And this is my rationale. Like Blake Horvath is back for Navy, as I Am Tenzin says. And he says he's totally going to have them undefeated by the time they meet. And I think that that's got to be what NBC is thinking. You know, like after seeing last year,
sure,
like Notre Dame played both Army and Navy when they were unbeaten at that point, and they were both ranked teams last year. So last year it made sense. And obviously the Army game was the Shamrock Series game out there at Yankee Stadium. And I'm sure that NBC is kind of banking on Navy because, like, when you look at Navy's schedule, it's a Navy schedule. It's not much different than last year. And you've got Horvath, so you're going to have kind of especially in terms of the service academies, he's going to be a pretty big name, because everyone kind of found out about him this year with what Navy did. So, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. But I'm completely with you. It was totally shocking that they announced a 3rd primetime game. But then again, there's no Shamrock Series game this year.
Oh, that's a good point.
And again, they had 2 home primetime games last year, plus the Shamrock Series game, with that Army game.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
And the schedule is better this year than last year. So,
yeah. So
I was shocked, but maybe I shouldn't have been so shocked.
I know, right? I mean, when you break it down, I guess it makes sense. I was still surprised when I opened up that email this afternoon or this morning or whenever it came through. It was like, oh,
right.
3 night games.
We'll see how NBC feels about that decision, though, when it's, 11 o'clock and it's, still the end of the 3rd quarter and Notre Dame's up by 4 touchdowns.
Right.
So, yeah. Fill in the blank after Notre Dame got the commitment of 4-star defensive tackle Tiki Hola over the weekend. You feel blank about the Irish defensive line coach Al Washington.
Yeah, the same, I guess. I think he's a good recruiter. I think he's doing a good job. I think he's, he was easy fodder there for a while as far as like the shots taken and things like that for Al Washington. I think he has more than proven what he can do during the season. I think, maybe there was still a little bit to be desired from a recruiting standpoint, but I think he's doing a good job. I don't think he's like on the hot seat or anything like that. So I feel pretty good about Al Washington right now.
I've always felt pretty good about the developmental side, but let's just be honest. The recruiting side was what had to come around, right? But
Sure.
the guy is getting win after win after win at this point between Dunham, Iwatade, and now Ola as well. I mean, that's 3 4-star guys in a span of about 3, 4, 5 weeks or something like that. That's almost as many, defensive line specific as they've signed in the last 3 years. And to get a guy like this, I don't know how much film of this guy you were able to see, but I mean, he gets after it. He's pretty disciplined. 102 tackles for a defensive lineman as a junior. 102 tackles in a high school season is a lot for a linebacker in a high school. That is let alone a defensive lineman. This guy's running guys downfield. He looks good. So I saw him block some punts, block some field goals in there as well. So Marty Biagi's going to be pretty happy about him as well. So big get, love it. And again, for me, it's always kind of been for Al Washington. I felt like from a developmental side, I think that we've seen a little bit more from him in each of the 3 years now, as he's been here.
Sure.
And I think that last year with some of the injuries they sustained, I felt like he really showed what he could do as a coach. But again, the biggest question that it felt like most people had about Washington was, is he ever going to get some recruiting wins? And he's stringing together a lot of big time wins.
True.
So feel good. Feel good.
Love it.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that the Raiders have signed Jaylon Smith after the Notre Dame great did not play last season after failing to catch on with the team.
Surprising. I didn't realize. It felt like he's been gone for longer, I guess is the best way to put it. So I felt like he was coming out of retirement after a few years, but it was only after 1 year, he's able to sign on. Now, that doesn't guarantee that he's going to make the team and all of that. He's going to have to go through all of the stuff. But man, he's a generational talent, and the injury just made it all go sideways. And so, for him, obviously, I hope that this is the beginning of maybe a little resurgence, a little renaissance for him, and he has the opportunity now to maybe go out on his own terms too, which, a lot of professional athletes don't have that opportunity. So, I hope the best for him. He's with the Raiders, so God only knows what that's going to look like. But for him, he's a great kid. I hope the best for him.
I mean, I hope he sticks. He obviously started off with the Cowboys, and it took him a little time, but they gave him that big contract. He basically had 1.5 good years with Dallas, and then for whatever reason, it just started to go downhill. And they didn't keep him after that. He bounced around a little bit between the Packers and the Giants, and actually did play 1 game in 2023 with the Raiders, and then that was it. They waived him after that. But I mean, so he's basically gone the better part of the last 2 years without playing. So that's I was completely shocked to see that he's kind of back in the mix, that they were even inviting him out there for the minicamp that they had over the weekend. Cause he was doing Good Morning Football a couple of weeks ago. And, there's he was part of a group that's trying to bring, I think it's a ramen bar or something like that, to South Bend. I think it was Eddy Street Commons or something like that, which he can still do as a player, obviously, but it just felt like he had kind of moved on and was making other plans for his future, which is good. But I think it's awesome. Now he's still got to make the team out of training camp and all that kind of stuff. But the Raiders are, like you said, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with them, especially playing in that division when you had 3 other teams that were in the playoffs last year. But hey, Pete Carroll, can't go wrong.
I mean, look, Jaylon obviously wasn't
Can't go
gonna
wrong with Pete Carroll. I'm not saying that things
Well,
can't go wrong, but
you're not wrong. Look, it's not like Jaylon was going to be working the back of the house at the new ramen hotel or ramen restaurant, so he can still be a financial partner in that, and he'll be good to go.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I don't think he was actually going to be standing there, like,
what's up, guys?
Serving ramen or
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love the fact that he's figuring things out off the field and all of that. But he wants to give it one more go. It'd be hard to turn him down, especially when you're going into camp. You need bodies anyway. So I mean, if he can flash, and
exactly,
that'd be great for him.
I think from their perspective, look, it's a veteran guy, great attitude, leadership, and all that kind of stuff. You bring him in, give him a shot,
right?
Like zero to lose.
They didn't sign him to a multi-year deal or anything.
No, exactly. Beefeater says a 4-ticket package for a Notre Dame game was auctioned off for CJ Carr's late brother, the ChadTough Foundation, to defeat DIPG. It raised over $10,000. Auction was heavy on Michigan items, and Notre Dame beat them all by a lot. Nice.
Cool.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Great cause as well.
It is a great cause.
Yeah.
And it is very well supported by Michigan, and I know that Notre Dame has their hand in it as
understandably,
well.
But I mean, now that there's
a
Notre Dame connection there, it's kind of cool.
I mean, mark it down, May 12th, 2025. I was saying nice things about Michigan. So that was my point. It's very well represented by Michigan. They support that foundation. I think that's awesome. And touche to the Wolverines for supporting that foundation.
Yep. Good deal.
And I'm done.
All right. That'll be the one time you ever hear Vince say anything good.
Mark it down.
About Michigan. Notre Dame Lacrosse knocked off number 4 seed Ohio State in the first round of the NCAA tournament this weekend. Buy or sell it as a successful season now for the 2-time defending national champs.
Well, when you're the 2-time defending national champs, a successful season is winning the national championship. So I'm going to sell it for now. That was a big win. Obviously, they avenged a loss to Ohio State earlier in the season. I didn't realize they play so few regular season games. Like, I think they said, Notre Dame's only played like 12 games or something. They played
12 regular season games, and apparently Corrigan, I think it's maybe, I think the limit is somewhere around like 15, 16, maybe. Some he always plays under the limit for some reason. I'm not exactly sure what his rationale is, but yeah, they don't play the maximum amount of games that they could play.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought it was like a typo when I was watching the game that they only played that many games throughout the regular season, but it wasn't. And obviously when you play that few games, the margin for error is pretty slim. So they were an unranked team going into the championship run. And what I also thought was interesting, by the way, not to go off on a lacrosse tangent, because I don't know that much about lacrosse, but after they rank the top 8 teams, the rest of the teams that they bring in to the tournament are paired up with the ranked teams based on geography, not based on where they would be ranked. So Ohio State got Notre Dame, an unranked team, in the first round, while Penn State, who I think was ranked beneath Ohio State, got
they're the 5 seed. That's who they get now. Yeah,
so
that's who Notre Dame gets now.
It was the announcers were talking about wow, Ohio State really kind of took it here, and Penn State kind of had a bye almost.
So it was interesting listening to your answer to this question, because on Friday going into the weekend, I asked Jesse, do they have to win another national championship, to feel good about this season, since they're the 2-time defending champs? It kind of seems like for you, it's all or nothing.
Darn right. They at least got to get there. You got to get to the dance, the championship, the natty.
Yeah. I think, at some point you're not going to keep winning championships.
Agreed.
So
but they still have the core of that team minus the goalie, because the goalie was a stud.
And Kavanaugh. They've got, was it Chris, but they don't have Pat, right?
They have number 50, who's been amazing both of their runs, and he's still there.
Right.
As long as it's the same.
They were the 2 brothers. The brother with the torn hamstring,
right? Where
graduated last year.
Yeah.
But that was 2 years ago that he had. But my point is,
Right.
He was kind of the leader last year. They
Right.
still have the younger brother
Right.
this year. So they don't have
They're very deep.
They
are
lost
very
a lot
deep
of they had a ton of those fifth-year guys
Right.
last year because of the COVID year and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think at the very and we talked about this going into the weekend as well. 2 of the 4 losses were by 1 point, and they lost to
Right.
Ohio State in the regular season in a fairly close game. So they come back, they avenge that. They're in the quarterfinals now for the 13th time in the last 15 years. Like this is
That's what I'm
this
saying.
is kind of an easy money round for them. Like win this game, you're at least in the semifinals.
So that's the saying. If you've been to this spot 13 out of the last 15 years, like we're not at success yet. Like that's normal. That's, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they need to advance a little further for me.
They've also won 9 straight NCAA tournament games because of the fact that they've won back-to-back national championships.
Makes sense.
So yeah, they're on a pretty long tear at this point. But again, you've won 2 national championships, so that kind of stands to reason. So Decaf is asking about Notre Dame baseball in the NCAA tournament. He says they're the hottest team in the nation right now, and as fate would have it, we've got a question. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Notre Dame baseball has won 13 of its last 15 games heading into this weekend's regular season finale at Miami after sweeping Bowling Green over the weekend.
It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Like they were awful the first half of the season, and now all of a sudden they're winning a bunch of games. Now I realize they swept Bowling Green, which is a MAC team, but you know, a lot of those other wins are against ACC teams. Okay. And, you know, they held their own against Florida State, which is impressive all by itself. And obviously they've got Miami coming up. I guess if you want to get hot, this is the time to get hot right before the tournament and everything else, you know, get your name out there. I don't even know if they're considered a bubble team at this point, but, you know, this is the time to be winning. It's certainly not the time to be losing. So it's impressive they've won 13 out of 15. At least, look, it makes Sean Stifler's job a little bit more safe going into next year.
No, that's exactly right. And like, to your point, like a win is a win. And that's what they need is wins at this point. Now, the only thing that I'll say is, as you said, it's Bowling Green, it's a MAC team. Now, you could easily have lost those teams. So what they've shown is at the very least their weekend pitching, you know, their 3 best guys are better than a MAC team's 3 best guys. You know, whereas like the series where they really started kicking up steam was Cal and Stanford in back-to-back weekends. Those 2 teams are sitting pretty low in the conference right now, but they've worked their way onto the bubble, and that's really all you can ask. You know, they've still got their work cut out for them because to me, I feel like they've got to go to Miami, at least take 2 out of 3 games in this series, and then you go to the ACC tournament. And remember, I don't know if you do remember this, but they expanded the ACC baseball tournament this year.
Okay.
All 16 teams are going to be in.
Oh, okay.
And it's basically like a basketball tournament. It's going to be single elimination.
Oh, wow.
So I think they need to take 2 out of 3 this weekend against Miami and then probably win 3 games to feel comfortable for their chances, you know, to be in the tournament. One projection I saw them last week had them among the first 4 teams out that was going into last weekend. You know, again, win's a win, but you're not going to get any, you know, big picture points, you know, like for sweeping a MAC team.
Correct.
At the end of the season.
They got to make some noise against Miami this weekend. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, 64 teams get in. And, you know, I'm looking at one projection. They don't have Notre Dame listed as like one of the last 4 out. You know, they're going to have to make some noise this weekend if they want to. And they're going to have to make noise in the ACC tournament too.
Right.
Because there's 9 in this projection I'm looking at. There's 9 teams in the ACC that are projected to make the field.
Their problem is going to be like they've got a win against Florida State. Yeah. Like other than that, they don't have a lot of quality wins.
Right.
And they've got some bad losses on the resume as well because of the fact that they lost midweek games to Western Michigan, Northwestern, and Purdue. None of those teams are any good. So like that's like at the very least, you know, great. You're winning at the end of the season. You've pushed your way toward the bubble, but they've got some resume building to do. And like I said, winning a series, you're right, Christopher. They won one game against Clemson.
You got to win more than one. That's the thing.
Right.
They're going to have to win a couple
that
games.
Doesn't help you. Like that doesn't do much for you in terms of RPI points. But again, like from a straight up resume, like at least you have a win, but you also lost the series. So like
exactly
the fact that they were able to pick up wins against Clemson and Florida State definitely help them. But they've got resume work to do. And like I said, if they can win 2 out of 3 this weekend and probably win 3 games at the ACC tournament, they're feeling pretty good, but they don't have much teeth to their resume other than that. I think their RPI right now is 49. So again, it's getting better. I think they've jumped up a few points. They've definitely jumped up a few points in the last few weeks, but I'm looking here, like Florida State, their RPI right now is 9. Louisville's is 22. And I forgot about that one. That's actually a good resume because they took 2 out of 3 from them, and that's kind of included in this current hot streak. But where is there they are. Bowling Green has an RPI of 127, so again, it's like that doesn't help you.
I mean, Notre Dame's sitting at 11th right now in the conference. They're 12-15. So I mean, if they sweep Miami, then that puts them at 500. Then they have a shot. You know what I mean? But they're going to have to do really well this weekend, and then they're going to have to win multiple games in the tournament in order to even make it in. I think
you win 3 games. If they win 3 games at the ACC tournament, that gets them into the semifinals. So
I think they got a shot. Now, I don't think. Listen, you can't go 0-3 against Miami this weekend.
No,
you can't. Because
honestly, I think you have to win the series.
Absolutely.
Miami.
Completely agree with that. Because Notre Dame's sitting at 11 and Miami's sitting at 8. So that wouldn't even be like a huge upset. Like Miami's sitting 2 games over 500 right now. Notre Dame's 3 games under 500, right? 14-12 versus 12-15. So, they got to win that series, kind of shorten that gap a little bit. And then you got to win some games in the ACC tournament. They got a long way to go before they're in the postseason. That's the point.
They still have their work cut out for them, but all of a sudden, like at least they're playing with more confidence.
Absolutely.
Right now they've still got to play Eastern Michigan this week, and that could end up being a little bit dicey. And it's a game that's been rained out a few, like because of the fact that they've lost some of these midweek games, like I talked about, to Western Michigan and Northwestern and such. They actually play Eastern Michigan tomorrow. That'll be their home finale. That game's been rained out, I think, at least 2 other times.
Is it really?
This season? But again, like you're not going to have one of your weekend pitchers pitching against Eastern Michigan.
Correct.
You've absolutely got to win that game.
Yes. You can't have any clunkers on the resume at this point in the year.
Right.
You can't. And I'm sorry, Eastern Michigan's a MAC team. You got to beat Eastern Michigan. I mean, you just have to. So, and again, you got to win 2 out of 3 against Miami. Miami's not the number 1 team in the conference, right? So you've got to make some noise against Miami at this point.
Yes, concur. So this is NFL schedule release week. They're going to announce the full schedule Wednesday night. We got the first tease today. They announced the first game of the season.
I know you're excited.
Defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia against the Dallas Cowboys Thursday, September 4th. Are you in or out on the Cowboys being the opponent for the defending Super Bowl champs? I mean, that's the question, because it's always the defending Super Bowl champs get that first game. They're going with Dallas right out of the gates.
Look, it's a conference game. There's all the confidence is always high in Dallas. And I think it's a good first game. I don't know if you're going to appreciate that being the first game. You'd kind of like maybe a game to get your feet wet, but you're going right up against the world or the world champs right off the bat on the road. They're going to be unfurling the sign. All of those different things. Can the Cowboys kind of upset the party? I mean, look, if you're going to watch NFL, you might as well watch your team on the first game of the season. So I think this is a very enticing matchup for every fan, because this should be a very good game.
I mean, it's kind of like last year remember the season started, they sent the Cowboys to Cleveland for Tom Brady's first broadcast, and they kind of made a big deal out of that. And I think it was either Tom Brady's first year in Tampa or the next year they had the Cowboys in Tampa kicking off on Thursday night. They love to use Dallas as a ratings magnet that first weekend of the season if they can. So it's no shock. And I agree with Christopher. Like, go to Philly, rain on the parade there in Philly. I love it. Everyone's going to be fully healthy right out of the gate. Like, that's the one I want right away.
Either go really well or really poorly.
Oh, it's going to go well, baby.
He's all in.
Fired up on this one.
He's all in, baby.
Philly. Freak Philly.
I love it. I love the passion in which you speak.
Yes. I got fired up. When I saw that, because it also kind of makes you think that, not only are they going to use the Cowboys as a ratings magnet, but the fact that they're doing it in week 1 probably means like they're not overly confident in what Dallas is going to be this year. So they're doing it, early in the schedule rather than later in the schedule, like when you don't know what the record's going to be and that kind of stuff. So, in for a big surprise. All right, another NFL question for you. The Rams are going to go to Maui, Hawaii for their mini camp next month, which I thought was interesting. My question, though, is why just mini camp? Would you buy or sell a regular season game in Hawaii?
I mean, if they're going to play regular season games in Mexico and London and
Brazil,
put
Australia,
one in
Germany,
put one in the United States.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually all in on it. I think they have missed the boat because look, they've already taken away the Pro Bowl from Hawaii. Give them a game. Give them a game. Because look, the Pro Bowl was always well attended. They loved having the Pro Bowl in Hawaii. At least the Hawaiians did, from what I can tell. Give them a game. Give them a game. I'm all for it. I'm in. Buy it.
I mean, I completely buy it as well, because just like we just said, it's like you're playing all over the world. I realize that Hawaii is a pretty good flight, but if you're going to play these games all over the world, why wouldn't you? They've got that stadium. I have no idea what the shape of the stadium is now, but obviously Hawaii has a team. They used to play, the Pro Bowl there. They played, the Hawaii Bowl and all that stuff over there. Like at the very least, the NFL could, spring for some new turf, if like that's an issue or anything. It just seems to make sense to me. And especially like Maui, with all the stuff they went through, with those fires and stuff, what's that been? Just like 2 or 3 years back. I mean, it hasn't been that long. It feels like that could be something that could really help out Hawaii if you did something like that. Send the freaking Cowboys and the Rams over there. Send the Chiefs over there. Somebody.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I don't like I'm curious actually as to where they used to play the game, because I'm looking at the University of Hawaii's field, and it's got like a track around it and all kinds of other things. So I'm curious as to where they were. Is that where they were playing the Pro Bowl?
I'm trying to remember
in that stadium. I don't know. There's got to be, because like I said, I'm looking at the stadium. Not a lot of stands. You know what I mean? Like it's a very mediocre stadium for a Division I football team.
Aloha Stadium. Is that the stadium you're looking at?
No, I am not.
Aloha Stadium in Oahu is where they used to play the Pro Bowl.
Ah, okay. That makes a little bit more sense based on the size of
probably
it.
A little bit bigger.
A lot bigger, actually.
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
That makes some more sense. Like you could easily play an NFL game there. Come on.
Yeah. Well, again, they played the Pro Bowl there, so it was pretty good size. I mean, and really, it's not like you need Super Bowl attendance for one of these things. You're doing it kind of for the locals and maybe a little tourism, maybe some fans go over, that kind of thing. Play an NFL game in Hawaii in December. Like, who's going to complain about that? Who's going to complain about that, Vince?
Not this guy. Not that I would be invited, but not this guy.
True story. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. We kind of ran the gambit with everything tonight.
Good stuff. It's a Monday, you know.
Yeah.
It's a Monday in May. It's summertime in college football. You know, we don't have a portal to talk about anymore. You know, there's only so much out there. There's,
Which
you
is
know,
good.
you know, the 16-team playoff, though. It's like I want to temper my excitement because obviously this year it's not happening. We're back to the 12 team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like I want to get excited, but I don't want to get too excited. That's the thing.
Yeah, very true. Tomorrow's show, USC rider RJ Abatia is going to join me. And I talked about this on Friday.
Uh-oh.
Everyone complains. Everyone complains about the pre-recorded interviews. RJ is going to be on live tomorrow. So
say it ain't so.
Be on your best behavior, but be here and know that it'll be a live interview. There's so much stuff to talk about with USC. That's why I said, hey, RJ, what's up? We got Chad Bowden. We got the future schedule thing.
We got USC
decommitment.
You got a decommitment that is leaning Irish, it feels like. So, yeah, lots to talk about. Right now, they have the number 1 recruiting class in the country for the 26 class. You know?
Yep.
Notre Dame's number 2.
Notre Dame's number 2 right now.
So, you know. And does he think that USC is going to back out of the rivalry? Those are the things I want to know. What's the vibe coming from LA?
And that's exactly what we'll find out on tomorrow's show when RJ's on live. So, all right. Hit the like button before you leave. Thanks as always for being here, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on our IB Nation Sports Talk.